Well, welcome everyone to the ABCs of GCP and the 13 principles of ICH. ICH, as you know, is International Conference on Harmonization. It has become the standard for good clinical practice. I am Gary Freeman, and I have over 30 years' experience in the pharmaceutical and medical device industry. We've developed this webinar as an introductory course to discuss the basic concept of good clinical practice, or GCP as we affectionately refer to it. Its common elements include the 13 principles as itemized in the ICH Guidelines, International Conference on Harmonization. These are principles that are used globally for all of our clinical trials, and they're embraced by the FDA in our law for the United States, which is commonly known as the Code of Federal Regulations, or CFR. Although the ICH was originally drafted for drug studies, device companies have also embraced it, and so these 13 principles would refer to drug research as well as device research. Let's look at our learning objectives for today. And please chat to me if you have anything that we hit upon that you're not familiar with. We have many abbreviations and acronyms in this industry, and I'll be happy to decipher any of them that might be new to you. As we start our first slide then, our learning objectives include describing the goals of good clinical practice. Why do we have them? What is the purpose? We'll discuss the various regulations that affect both drug and device, as well as biologic investigational products related to good clinical practice. We're also going to recognize the mutual accountability and the responsibilities for each of the stakeholders. These stakeholders would include the sponsor, the CRO, clinical research organization if we have one, the investigator, the IRB, or IEC as it's known in Europe, and the regulatory authority, whether that be the FDA in the United States or a foreign regulatory authority. We're going to learn to apply the 13 principles of ICH as they are stated to quality research studies and ensure compliance. These 13 principles are embraced by the FDA for the United States studies, but they're never itemized as such in the Code of Federal Regulations. Now let's look for the definition. This is the same definition for all stakeholders, as you know. We're going to be looking at every aspect of the clinical trial, right from the very beginning, and this is an international standard. It is defined in the ICH in Section 124. Section 1 is a glossary in the ICH. If you're not familiar with it, you can go on the website for the ICH, International Conference on Harmonization. It's ICHhome.org. And Section 1 is the glossary. There are about 60 terms that are highlighted there. One of them is good clinical practice. This definition is also deeply rooted in our laws and regulations, such as the Code of Federal Regulations in the United States. It has become the standard for conducting clinical trials across the world. It involves every area of the clinical trial, starting with the design of the study, the whole investigational plan itself, including the protocol. It will include every aspect of the conduct of the study, how we actually carry it out, the performance itself. This would include the investigator, it would include the institutional review board, it would include the sponsor, as well as any vendors. It's going to talk to the monitoring. Inadequate monitoring is a major issue when inspections are conducted by regulatory authorities. So there's a lot to say about how the study should be monitored in the ICH. It's talking about if we should audit the study, whether we audit it by using our own quality assurance group in the sponsor, whether we use a CRO or third party, or if it is an inspection by the FDA or other regulatory agency. It's going to speak to how we record everything at the investigator site for this trial. It will discuss the analysis by our statisticians and also our medical writers and how they report these trials so that we can ensure everyone concerned that we've met our responsibilities. They can trust the data. The data is credible. It's accurate. It's complete. We've stood up to the rights and welfare of the subjects, and we've maintained their confidentiality. There is no time that a subject will ever see their name in print in a scientific journal, because the sponsor has never received their name. The name remains confidential only to the investigator's site. So anyone going to the site to verify information will obviously have access to their actual name. This might be the clinical monitor. It might be a third-party auditor. It might be the regulatory agency. But it will never be the statistician. It will never be the medical director of the company itself.